You really don't remember anything? Mason's voice was the first thing I heard, and for one stupid second, I thought I was still dreaming. Then I opened my eyes and realized I was in his bed, not on his couch, not on the floor after some bad drunk decision. His bed. The room was too bright, the kind of morning light that felt personal and rude, cutting through the blinds in thin white lines across the sheets. My mouth tasted like cheap beer and regret. My head was pounding so hard I could feel it behind my eyes. Somewhere outside, a lawnmower started up, and for a second I just stared at the ceiling, trying to remember how the hell I got there. July 4th, fireworks. Someone yelling over country music. Red plastic cups. Mason laughing beside me. After that, everything turned into broken pieces. I shifted, and that was when I felt the hoodie over my chest. His hoodie, navy blue, worn soft at the sleeves, smelling like laundry detergent and the cologne he always claimed he didn't wear. My stomach dropped. Slowly, like moving too fast might make the room explain itself in the worst way possible, I turned my head. Mason was lying beside me, half on his side, hair messy, one arm tucked under his pillow. He looked tired. Not hungover tired. Worried tired. Like he had been awake before I was. Like he had been watching me wake up. My hand was curled in the fabric of his t-shirt near his waist. I let go so fast my knuckles hit the blanket. Oh my God. My voice came out rough. Mason didn't laugh. That made it worse. Mason always laughed. That was his thing. He made everything lighter. Awkward silence, bad dates, family drama, me overthinking every possible human interaction. He always had some stupid comment ready. But now he just looked at me, eyes soft and serious in a way I did not know what to do with. Morning, he said. Don't morning me. I sat up too quickly, and the room tilted. My hand flew to my forehead. Ow. Okay. Bad choice. Mason moved immediately, like he'd been waiting for me to do exactly that. His hand hovered near my shoulder, not touching it first. Careful. Too careful. Slow down, Ethan. Hearing my name like that made my chest tighten. Why am I in your bed? He looked away for half a second. Just half a second. But I saw it. You crashed here. People crash on couches, Mason. You wouldn't let me put you on the couch. My heart started beating faster. What does that mean? He rubbed a hand over his face, then sat up too, the mattress dipping between us. He was wearing yesterday's white t-shirt, wrinkled now, with a tiny stain near the collar from whatever we'd been drinking. Normal details. Safe details. Except nothing felt normal. You were drunk. I figured that part out. You were upset. That shut me up. Outside his window, someone laughed on the sidewalk. The world had the nerve to keep going like I wasn't sitting in my straight best friend's bed with no memory of how I got there. Upset about what? Mason's jaw tightened. He reached to the nightstand and handed me a glass of water. There were 2 aspirin beside it, already set out. Like he had planned for this. Like he knew I would wake up confused. I took the glass because my throat was dry, but my fingers brushed his when I did. Barely. Nothing. It should have been nothing. Still, neither of us moved for a second. His eyes dropped to our hands. Mine did too. Then he pulled back first. Drink. I did, mostly to have something to do. Did I embarrass myself? Mason leaned against the headboard, looking at the blanket instead of me. No, did I throw up? No, did I say something? Silence. My pulse jumped. Mason. He finally looked at me, and there was something in his face I had never seen before. Not anger. Not pity. Something more dangerous. Something almost hurt. You really don't remember anything? I swallowed. Last night flashed again in pieces. Fireworks above the backyard. Mason standing close enough that our shoulders touched. A girl with blonde hair laughing at something he said. Me walking away. His hand catching my wrist. His voice low under the sound of explosions. Don't look at me like that unless you mean it. My chest went cold. I remember some things. Mason's expression changed so fast I almost missed it. Hope, maybe. Fear, definitely. What things? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because I didn't know what I was more scared of. That nothing had happened. Or that something had, and he remembered every second. I should have told Mason the truth right then. I should have said, I remember you looking at me under the fireworks. I should have said, I remember your hand on my wrist. I should have said, I remember wanting you to stand closer. Instead, I did what I always did around him when things got too real. I made it stupid. I remember Hudson trying to light 3 sparklers at once and almost losing an eyebrow. Mason stared at me for a second. Then his mouth twitched, barely. That did happen. Good. So my brain is not completely broken. Debatable. There it was. Almost normal. Almost Mason. But the smile did not stay. It faded before I could relax into it. And suddenly the space between us felt weird again. Too quiet. Too full of whatever he was not saying. I looked down at the hoodie still bunched across my lap. His hoodie. I had borrowed it 100 times before. Football games, late-night drives, movie nights when his apartment was freezing because he refused to fix the thermostat. It never meant anything. That was the lie I had been feeding myself for years. Mason and I met freshman year of college because he walked into the wrong dorm room, carrying a pizza, and acted like I was the weird one for being there. He had this easy confidence that annoyed me before I realized I liked it. Before I realized I liked him. Back then, he was just the loud guy with messy brown hair who knew everyone by the second week of classes. I was quieter. Not shy exactly, just careful. Mason was not careful about anything. He would throw himself onto my bed like he paid rent there, steal my fries, rest his chin on my shoulder to read my laptop, call me his favorite person. In front of people like that was a normal thing for a straight guy to say. Everyone joked about us. Of course they did. You two are basically married. Where is your boyfriend? Mason, ask Ethan for permission first. Mason always played along. Too easily. Ethan would divorce me in a week. Please. He would miss me by Tuesday. If I ever settle down, it is going to be with someone who can handle my emotional damage and my bad parking. Then he would look at me, just long enough to mess with my breathing. And I would laugh, because laughing was safer than hoping. The problem was, Mason dated girls. Pretty girls. Confident girls. Girls who could touch his arm without thinking about it for the rest of the night. He never hid that part of himself, and I never held it against him. I just learned where to put my feelings. Somewhere small. Somewhere locked. Somewhere I could pretend did not exist when he showed up at my place with takeout and said, "Move over, husband." I had a terrible day. I used to think I was good at hiding it. Maybe I was. Or maybe Mason had always seen more than I wanted him to. "You are doing that thing," he murmured. I blinked, dragged back to his room, his bed, the bright morning after. What thing? The thing where you disappear into your head and pretend you are fine. My throat tightened. I am hungover. That is different. Ethan. Just my name. That was all. But the way he said it made my stomach twist. Soft. Tired. Like he had said it a lot last night. I forced myself to swing my legs over the side of the bed. I should go. Mason moved at the same time, reaching for the hoodie before I could stand. His fingers closed around the sleeve. Mine did too. We both froze. It was the dumbest thing. Two grown men holding opposite ends of a sweatshirt like it was evidence in a crime scene. His thumb brushed my knuckle by accident. Maybe by accident. Heat climbed up my neck so fast I hated myself for it. Mason did not let go right away. His eyes flicked to mine. "You do not have to run." I laughed once, dry and awful. "I am not running. You literally have one shoe on." I looked down. He was right. One sneaker. One sock. No dignity. For half a second, we both almost smiled. Then Mason tugged the hoodie lightly, not enough to take it. Just enough to keep me there. "You asked for this last night." My chest went still. "The hoodie." He nodded, but his eyes did that thing again. Held mine too long. Said too much without saying enough. "You said it smelled like me." I wanted the floor to open. I wanted to evaporate. I wanted to remember. I was drunk. Yeah. His voice dropped. I know. That should have made it harmless. Instead, it made everything worse, because he sounded like he wished I had not been. I let go of the sleeve first. "Mason, whatever I said, you meant it?" My heart kicked hard. He looked surprised by his own question, like it slipped out before he could stop it. The room went quiet again. Too quiet. Outside, another firework popped somewhere late and distant, left over from the night before. I stared at him, my mouth dry, my chest tight, and for the first time in years, I had no joke ready. I did not answer him. I could not, because there was no safe answer to a question like that. If I said yes, everything changed. If I said no, I would be lying to his face, in his bed, wearing one shoe and holding the hoodie I apparently begged for the night before. So I did the only thing my coward brain could manage. I stood up too fast, grabbed my other sneaker from beside his dresser, and nearly fell into his laundry basket. Mason caught my elbow before I hit anything. Of course he did. His hand was warm, steady, wrapped around me like it belonged there. Careful. I stared at his fingers on my arm. He noticed. His grip loosened. But he did not fully let go. You are still shaky. I am fine. You are lying. That is rude. That is accurate. I tried to pull my arm back. Not hard, just enough to prove I could. Mason let me go immediately, and somehow that felt worse. I sat on the edge of the bed to put my shoe on, mostly because my knees did not feel trustworthy. He moved around the room without making a big deal out of it. Found my phone under his pillow, plugged it into his charger, picked my wallet off the floor near his closet, set my keys beside the water glass. Every little thing said he had taken care of me last night. Not casually. Not like you do for some drunk friend you are annoyed with. Carefully. Like I mattered. I hated that I noticed. I hated that it made my chest feel tight. Why was my phone under your pillow? My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Mason paused with his back to me. You kept trying to call yourself an Uber. That sounds responsible. You typed your own address wrong 3 times. Less responsible. He turned, leaning against the dresser, arms crossed loosely. You also tried to order pancakes at 2 in the morning from a place that closed in 2019. That got a laugh out of me before I could stop it. A real one. Mason smiled too, and for a second, there he was again. My best friend. The guy who made bad mornings survivable. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once. Twice. Then a lot. Mason looked at it. I looked at it. My stomach dropped before I even touched it. The group chat. Of course. Hudson had sent 3 blurry photos from the party, all fireworks and red cups, and people making terrible decisions in patriotic tank tops. Then there was a video. I should not have opened it. Obviously, I opened it. The video started with someone yelling, "Happy 4th, losers." The camera swung wildly across the backyard. Mason appeared near the fence, laughing at something, a sparkler in one hand. I stood beside him, closer than I remembered. Way closer. His arm was behind me, not fully around my waist, but close enough that my brain stopped working. In the video, Haley walked up to Mason with 2 drinks and said something I could not hear. He smiled politely. Then his eyes shifted. To me. Even through the bad lighting, even with the camera shaking, I saw it. He was not looking at her like that. He was looking at me. Hudson's voice came from behind the phone, loud and drunk. Ethan, stop staring at your husband and take the drink. Everyone laughed. Everyone except Mason. In the video, I looked embarrassed. Mason looked down at me, and instead of playing along like he always did, he went quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made my skin prickle. Then Video Me said something I barely caught. He is not my husband. A beat. Mason's smile faded. Just a little. Video Me lifted my cup like I was joking. He is my favorite mistake. My whole body went cold. The video ended there. I stared at the screen. Mason stared at me. The room felt smaller than it had a minute ago. I said that. My voice barely worked. Mason rubbed his thumb along the edge of the dresser, eyes lowered. Yeah. In front of everyone. Most people were too drunk to notice. But you noticed. His gaze lifted to mine. I notice you when you are quiet, Ethan. My mouth went dry. That was not an answer. Or maybe it was too much of one. I looked back at the phone because looking at him was dangerous. Another message came in from Hudson. A photo this time. Me and Mason sitting on the back steps later in the night. My head leaned against his shoulder. His hoodie wrapped around me. His hand resting over mine. Not gripping. Not hiding. Just there. Like he had chosen it. Under the photo, Hudson had typed, "You 2 disappeared after this, by the way." I stopped breathing. Mason saw the message over my shoulder. Neither of us moved. Then, quietly, he said, "That was when you asked me to take you home." I looked at the photo, then at him. But we did not go to my home. Mason's face changed. Not guilt. Not regret. Something softer. Something that scared me more. "No," he said. "You asked me to take you somewhere you would not have to pretend. Somewhere I would not have to pretend." I repeated it because my brain refused to hold the sentence the first time. Mason looked like he regretted saying it, and also like he had needed to say it since the second I woke up. He pushed away from the dresser, then stopped halfway across the room, giving me space like I was something fragile. That almost made me laugh. Mason Reed, who once tackled me into a snowbank because I threw a French fry at him, was now treating me like one wrong move would break us both. I was drunk, I said, because that was the only wall I had left. His face tightened. I know. So whatever I meant last night, I know. His voice was quiet now. Too quiet. That is why I did not let anything happen. My heart stumbled. There it was. The sentence I had been scared of and chasing at the same time. I stood there in his room with one shoe tied badly, his hoodie still on the bed behind me, my phone buzzing with messages I no longer wanted to see. Nothing happened. Mason looked down, dragged his hand over the back of his neck, then let out a slow breath. Not like that. Not like that. 3 words, and suddenly the floor felt uneven. Mason. He glanced up. Do not ask me if you are not ready to hear it. That should have shut me up. It should have made me grab my keys, make another joke, get out of his apartment, and spend the next week pretending this was just another weird story for the group chat. But I was so tired of pretending. Tired in my bones. Did I say something about you? His mouth moved like he almost answered. Then he looked at the door, at the hallway beyond it, like he was checking if the world was still out there waiting to ruin us. You said a lot. Was it bad? No, his answer came too fast. Then softer. No, Ethan. It was not bad. My chest hurt. Then why do you look like that? Mason laughed once under his breath, but there was no humor in it. Because you do not remember saying it, and I have been remembering it all morning. The room went still around us. I could hear his refrigerator humming from the kitchen, a car door shutting somewhere outside, my own pulse in my ears. I wanted to ask exactly what I said. I wanted him to tell me. I wanted him not to tell me, because once he did, I would not be able to shove it back into the safe little locked place where I kept him. Mason stepped closer, slow enough that I could have moved away. I did not. You were sitting on the back steps, he murmured. You had my hoodie on. You kept saying the fireworks were too loud, but you were really just trying not to look at me. My throat went dry. Pieces came back in sparks. Red light across his face. His knee against mine. His hand covering mine because I had been shaking, or maybe because he wanted to. And then, Mason stopped right in front of me. Not touching. Close enough that I could see the tired shadows under his eyes. Close enough to count the tiny freckle near his jaw I had pretended not to notice for years. You told me it was hard being your best friend sometimes. I swallowed. Why? His eyes held mine. Because I made it too easy to want things you were not allowed to want. I forgot how to breathe. He remembered the sentence perfectly. I could tell by the way it hurt him to say it. My hand curled at my side, useless and nervous. Mason noticed, because of course he did. His fingers twitched like he wanted to reach for me. He did not. What did you say back? The question barely came out. Mason's gaze dropped to my mouth for the smallest second. Maybe I imagined it. I probably imagined it. Then he looked back at my eyes, and I knew I had not. I told you maybe I was tired of acting like you were the only one wanting anything. My stomach dropped so hard I almost stepped back. Almost. Instead, I stood there like an idiot, trapped between panic and something warmer, something I did not trust yet. Mason, his name sounded different in my mouth. He heard it too. His expression shifted, opened for one dangerous second. His hand lifted, not all the way, just enough for his knuckles to brush mine. Barely a touch. Still, it went through me like a sparkler catching flame. Neither of us moved. His fingers slowly turned, almost slipping between mine. Almost. Then someone pounded on his apartment door. Mason, you alive in there? Hudson's voice cut through the room like a bucket of ice water. We jumped apart so fast it was embarrassing. Mason closed his eyes. I stared at the door, heart hammering, hand still tingling from the touch that had not fully happened. Hudson knocked again. I know Ethan is there too, by the way. His car is outside. Mason looked at me. I looked back. And for the first time that morning, there was no joke to hide behind. Just the two of us, standing too far apart, pretending Hudson had interrupted nothing. Hudson kept knocking like the door owed him money. I brought breakfast burritos, and I am emotionally prepared to judge both of you. Mason stared at the ceiling for half a second, like he was asking some higher power for patience. I almost laughed, but my heart was still going too fast. My hand still felt weird from where his fingers had almost slipped into mine. Almost. That word was starting to ruin my life. Mason walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. He looked back at me. Not long. Just enough to ask a question without saying it. Are you okay? I nodded because Hudson was 5 feet away and I did not know how to say, no. I think my straight best friend almost held my hand and now I might never be normal again. Mason opened the door. Hudson stood there in sunglasses, a red, white, and blue tank top, and the expression of a man who had absolutely no shame. He held up a greasy paper bag. Good morning, America. Mason did not move aside. Why are you here? Because Ethan vanished last night. Your phone went silent, and the group chat is currently writing fan fiction without me. My stomach dropped. Hudson leaned around Mason's shoulder and spotted me by the bed. His grin widened. There he is. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand too quickly. I was hungover. In Mason's bedroom? His couch was full. Mason turned his head slowly toward me. His face said, "Really? That is the lie you chose." Hudson looked past us into the apartment. The couch looks pretty empty from here. I hated him. I hated his sunglasses. I hated breakfast burritos. Mason finally stepped aside because refusing would have looked worse. Hudson walked in like he lived there, dropped the bag on the kitchen counter, and immediately started scanning the room. My shoes by the dresser. My wallet on the nightstand. Mason's hoodie on the bed. The 2 glasses of water. The aspirin. His eyebrows climbed higher with every clue. "Wow." "Do not," Mason warned. Hudson raised both hands. I did not say anything. "You said wow." "Wow" is a sound. Legally, that is not a sentence. I moved toward the kitchen because standing near the bed suddenly felt like confessing to a crime. Mason followed, close but not too close. That somehow made me more aware of him. Hudson started pulling burritos out of the bag, still watching us like we were a documentary. "So, rough night." "Everyone had a rough night," I muttered. "Sure." He handed me a burrito, then one to Mason. Except most of us did not leave the party looking like the final scene of an indie romance. My face went hot. Mason's jaw tightened. "Hudson." "What?" "I am supportive." "You are annoying." "Both can be true." He took off his sunglasses and looked at me more carefully. That was worse. The joking faded just a little. "Ethan, you good?" I did not expect the question to hit like that. Maybe because I was used to Hudson being loud, not gentle. Maybe because Mason was standing 2 feet away, too still, waiting for my answer. "Yeah, just embarrassed." Hudson's eyes flicked between us. "About what?" The kitchen went quiet. There it was. The trap. If I said too little, it sounded suspicious. If I said too much, I might crack open something neither of us knew how to close. Mason looked down at his coffee machine like it had personally betrayed him. I forced a shrug. I do not remember much after the fireworks. Hudson nodded slowly. "Right. About that." My stomach tightened. "What?" He pulled out his phone. I was not going to bring it up, but the group chat is already being stupid, so better you hear it from someone with half a soul. Mason stepped closer. "Hudson, relax. I am not showing the bad one." My blood went cold. "The bad one." Hudson winced. "Bad as in blurry. Not bad bad." He turned the screen toward me. It was a photo from the driveway. Me leaning against Mason's truck, his hoodie around my shoulders. Mason standing in front of me with both hands on my arms. Not grabbing. Holding me steady. His head was bent toward mine, listening. My face was tilted up at him like nobody else existed. It was the kind of photo that did not prove anything and somehow proved everything. People saw this. My voice barely came out. Hudson slid the phone back into his pocket. A few. Mason's expression closed off immediately. I saw it happen. Like a door shutting. "They are making jokes," Hudson added, softer now. "Nothing mean. Just, you know how they are." Yeah, I knew. They would laugh. They would call us married. They would make it a bit. And Mason would have to stand there while everyone shoved him into a joke he might not be ready to survive. I looked at him, but he would not look back. "It was nothing," I said quickly. Too quickly. Mason went still. Hudson's face shifted. "Ethan." I kept going because panic had taken the wheel. I was drunk. Mason was helping me. That is all. Mason set his burrito down untouched. The tiny sound of foil against the counter felt way too loud. Hudson looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor for once in his life. "I am going to grab coffee," he mumbled, even though there was coffee right there. From somewhere else. Far away. The door closed behind him a minute later, leaving the apartment worse than quiet. Mason stood with his back to me, one hand braced on the counter. I could see the tension in his shoulders. I hated myself immediately. "Mason." He nodded once, like he had already decided something. "You are right." My chest tightened. But Mason grabbed his keys from the counter and looked past me toward the door. "I can drive you home." There it was. The distance. Clean, polite, awful. And somehow, that hurt more than anything I still could not remember. The drive to my apartment took 12 minutes. I know because I stared at the clock on Mason's dashboard the entire time like it could save me from looking at him. 10:18, 10:21, 10:24. Every minute felt louder than the last. Mason kept both hands on the wheel, eyes on the road, jaw tight. Not angry exactly. Worse. Careful. Like he had packed every real feeling into a box and shoved it somewhere I could not reach. I hated it. I hated that I had done that to him. You can just drop me at the curb, I muttered when we turned onto my street. I know where you live. Right. Stupid. Perfect. Great work, Ethan. He pulled into the lot anyway and parked beside my car. Neither of us moved. The engine hummed softly between us. Someone across the street was taking down 4th of July decorations, little flags stuffed under one arm, like the whole country was already done celebrating while my life was still stuck on the night before. I reached for the door handle. Thanks for, making sure I did not die. Mason gave a short laugh, but it did not sound like him. That is me. Heroic designated babysitter. My hand froze on the handle. That is not what I meant. It is what you said. I turned toward him. Because Hudson was there. Yeah, he usually is. Mason. He finally looked at me, and the hit of it almost made me forget what I was going to say. His eyes were tired. Not from sleep. From holding back. Do not do that. My throat tightened. Do what? Say my name like you are about to be honest. Then run the second someone might hear. That landed hard because it was true. I looked down at my hands. One of my shoelaces was still tied wrong from his bedroom. I panicked. I noticed. I did not want them making it into a joke. Mason looked out the windshield, nodding slowly. Funny, because that is kind of our whole thing. What is? Turning everything into a joke before it can hurt us. Us. Not me. Us. My chest tightened around the word. Mason tapped his thumb once against the steering wheel, then stopped, like even that gave too much away. Last night, when you were on the steps, you kept apologizing. I barely breathed. For what? For looking at me too much. For getting quiet when Haley talked to me. For ruining the party, which you did not. He swallowed, eyes still forward. Then you said you were tired. I was drunk. You were tired of pretending. The car felt too small, too warm, too honest. I wanted to make some dumb comment about hangovers and dramatic speeches, but nothing came. Mason looked at me then. Really looked. And I told you I was tired too. My pulse kicked. You did? Yeah. His voice dropped, rough around the edges. Then you laughed, because you thought I was just trying to make you feel better. That sounded exactly like me. It made my stomach twist. Were you? Mason's mouth tightened. He looked away again, like the answer was sitting somewhere outside the windshield and not right between us. No, one word. Quiet. Clean. It cut through every excuse I had left. I stared at him. Mason, I did not want you to leave last night. His hands flexed on the wheel. Not because you were drunk. Not because I was worried, even though I was. I did not want you to leave because for once you were saying things I have been waiting to hear for maybe way too long. My heart was pounding now, hard enough that I felt it in my throat. But you dated girls. I know. You are straight. He let out a breath, almost a laugh, but it broke halfway. That word has felt a lot less simple lately. I could not move. I was afraid if I moved, the whole moment would snap shut. Mason turned in his seat, facing me fully now. His knee brushed mine. Barely. Neither of us shifted away. I do not have some perfect answer for you, Ethan. I do not know what to call it yet. I just know that when everyone jokes about us, I stopped hating it a long time ago. My chest went still. He kept going before I could speak. And when you said it was nothing back there, it did not feel like nothing. His voice got softer. It felt like you were taking it back. That hurt more than I expected. I was scared. So was I. His eyes flicked down to my hand resting near the center console. Slowly, carefully, he reached over. He did not grab. He just placed his fingers beside mine, close enough that I could choose. That choice almost broke me. I turned my hand. Our knuckles touched first. Then his fingers slipped between mine, warm and uncertain. Not a joke. Not an accident. Mason stared at our hands like he was just as shocked as I was. This felt real to me, he murmured. Outside, somebody slammed a car door and both of us flinched, but he did not let go. That was the part that made my chest ache. He did not let go. I looked at him, and for the first time since waking up, I stopped trying to escape the truth. It feels real to me too. Mason's face changed. Not into a smile exactly. Something smaller. More dangerous. Hope. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket, sharp and stupid, ruining the air between us. I glanced down. A message from Hudson. Group cookout tonight. You two coming or still pretending nothing happened? Mason saw it too. His hand loosened, just a little. And there it was again. The world outside the car, waiting to turn us back into a joke before we even knew what we were. For 1 second, Mason still held my hand. His fingers were warm between mine, careful but real, and I let myself believe we might actually stay there. Just a little longer. Then my phone buzzed again. Hudson, because apparently he had chosen violence as a lifestyle. Bring chips. And maybe your emotional honesty. Mason read it over my shoulder. His hand slipped out of mine. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough that the space came back. I felt it immediately. We do not have to go, I said. He stared through the windshield. It would look weird if we did not. Everything already looks weird. That almost got a smile out of him. Almost. Then his face closed again. Maybe we should not give them more to talk about. There it was. The sentence my brain had been waiting to use against me. I nodded like it did not hit. Like my chest had not tightened. Right. Mason looked over. Ethan. No, I get it. I reached for the door handle again. Group chat jokes are one thing. Real life is different. That is not what I meant. It is okay. I hated how calm I sounded. Calm was easy when you were falling apart quietly. You do not have to explain. Mason's jaw flexed. He looked like he wanted to say something. But the longer he waited, the more embarrassed I felt. Because maybe this was it. Maybe the car had been a bubble. Maybe he could hold my hand in a parked truck with nobody watching. But the second other people existed, I became a problem with a name he did not want to say. I opened the door. I will see you tonight. Are you going? Hudson will show up at my apartment if I do not. Ethan, wait. But I was already out of the truck, standing in the July heat with my stomach twisted into something ugly. I leaned down, forcing a half smile through the open door. Thanks for the ride. Mason looked at me like I had just stepped backward off a ledge. Maybe I had. I shut the door before he could stop me. The second I got inside my apartment, I leaned against it and let out a breath I did not know I had been holding. My place looked exactly the same as yesterday. Sneakers by the couch. Empty coffee mug on the counter. A red, white, and blue paper plate someone had shoved into my backpack from the party. Normal things. Safe things. None of them helped. I checked my phone 3 times in an hour. Mason did not text. I told myself that was fine. He needed space. I needed space. We both needed to be normal before the cookout. That was mature. Healthy. A complete lie. By 6, I almost did not go. Then Hudson sent a photo of a bowl of chips with the caption, "Your emotional support snacks are waiting." So I went, because apparently I had no survival instincts. The cookout was at Hudson's cousin's place, a small backyard with folding chairs, coolers, bug spray, and leftover 4th of July decorations drooping from the fence. Everyone was loud. Too loud. The kind of loud that made it easy to hide and impossible to think. Mason was already there. Of course he was. He stood near the grill in a gray t-shirt, holding a soda, laughing at something Haley said. Haley. Again. She touched his arm while she talked. Casual. Normal. Straight people normal. Mason smiled politely, and something stupid and sharp twisted in my chest. I looked away before he saw me looking. Do not do that, Hudson murmured beside me. I jumped. Do what? He handed me a beer, unopened. Act like you are watching weather patterns instead of Mason. I am not. You are terrible at lying today. Across the yard, Mason finally noticed me. His smile faded a little. Not in a bad way. More like he had been waiting and was scared I would leave. Haley followed his gaze, saw me, then looked back at him with an expression I did not like. Curious. Knowing. I hated that too. Mason started toward me, but before he could get far, Haley caught his wrist and said something that made him stop. I could not hear it over the music. I saw him shake his head. I saw her laugh softly. Then she leaned closer. My brain filled in the worst possible version. Hudson sighed beside me. Ethan. Do not. You do not even know what they are saying. I know enough. Mason looked over again, and this time I looked away on purpose. Childish. Cowardly. Effective. I spent the next half hour pretending to care about burgers and lawn darts. Every time Mason got close, someone pulled him into another conversation, or I moved first. I could feel his frustration from across the yard. Good. No, not good. Awful. But safer than standing in front of him and asking why he let go of my hand. Later, I went inside to grab napkins and found Mason in the kitchen. Alone. The music outside turned muffled behind the sliding glass door. Forced proximity, my least favorite miracle. He stood by the counter, hands braced on either side of the sink. You have been avoiding me. I opened a cabinet that definitely did not have napkins. I am looking for napkins. In the cup cabinet. I shut it. Maybe Hudson organizes weird. Mason turned around. His eyes were not soft now. They were hurt. I let go because I got scared. My hand froze on the cabinet handle. What? In the truck. He took one step closer, then stopped. I was not pulling away from you. I was thinking about them. About the jokes. About what happens when they stop joking. My throat tightened. So you were scared of people thinking we are? I could not finish it. Mason did not look away. I am scared of messing this up before I even understand it. Outside, someone laughed. Inside, neither of us moved. Then he added, quieter, and I am scared you will decide I am not worth the risk. That was the part one had not expected. I had spent the whole day thinking I was the secret. The problem. The thing he might regret. But Mason was standing there looking at me like he was the one waiting to be left. My voice came out thin. I thought you regretted holding my hand. He shook his head once. No, a pause. His eyes dropped to my hand, then back to my face. I regretted letting go. Then stop. The words came out before I could make them safe. Mason blinked. What? My hand was still on the cabinet handle. His were still braced against the counter. Between us, the kitchen felt too bright, too small, too normal for the kind of thing we were finally saying out loud. Outside, someone yelled about overcooked burgers. A bottle popped open. Music thumped through the glass door. Inside, Mason and I stood in the quiet like we had stolen it. I turned around fully. Stop letting go, and then acting like I am supposed to understand what that means. His face changed. Not defensive. Hit. I am trying. I know. My voice cracked a little, which annoyed me. I know you are. But I am trying too, and I am tired, Mason. I woke up in your bed with half a memory and all these pieces of you being careful with me, and every time I think I understand what happened, you step back. He looked down at the floor. Because I do not want to push you. You are not pushing me. You were drunk. I am not drunk now. That shut him up. The words hung there between us. Clear. Simple. Terrifying. Mason lifted his eyes to mine slowly, like he was afraid to believe I had really said it. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. I kept going before fear dragged me backward again. I do not remember everything from last night, but I remember enough. I remember being jealous when Haley talked to you. I remember hating myself for it. I remember you following me outside like you always do when I get quiet. His throat moved. Ethan. No. Let me say it before I turn it into a joke. He went still. I took one breath. Then another. I like you. Not in the funny husband joke way. Not in the group chat way. Not because I was drunk. I like you in the way that makes being your best friend hard sometimes. Mason's eyes softened and broke at the same time. Like he had been waiting for the sentence and still did not know what to do with it now that it was real. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he let out a breath, slow and shaky. You said almost that exact thing last night. My chest tightened. I know. No, you do not. He stepped closer. Not all the way. Just enough to make the air change. You said it like you were apologizing for it. Like having feelings for me was something you had done wrong. I looked away because that one landed too close. Mason's voice dropped. That made me angry. I blinked back at him. Angry. Not at you. His hand lifted, then stopped halfway, fingers curling once before falling back to his side. At myself. Because I let you think you were alone in it. My mouth went dry. Outside. Footsteps passed near the door, then faded. Mason waited until they were gone. I do not know how to do this perfectly. He gave a small, helpless laugh. Honestly, I do not even know what this is yet. I just know I notice you before anyone else in a room. I know I get weird when someone flirts with you. I know I kept your hoodie because it smelled like your laundry soap, which is embarrassing and I hate that I just admitted it. A laugh slipped out of me. Nervous. Soft. Real. Mason smiled for half a second, then it faded into something more serious. And last night, when you asked me to take you somewhere you would not have to pretend, I wanted that too. My hand slowly left the cabinet handle. Why did you stop? He looked at me like the answer mattered more than anything. Because you were drunk. Because you deserved to remember it. Because if anything happened between us, I wanted you to choose it in the morning too. My chest ached in the worst and best way. I took one step closer. Then another. Mason did not move back. The space between us shrank to almost nothing. His eyes dropped to my hand. This time, I reached first. My fingers brushed his. He looked at me, asking without words. I slid my hand into his. His grip closed around mine. careful at first, then stronger when I did not pull away. I am choosing it in the morning, I whispered. Mason's face changed. Hope again. Bigger this time. More dangerous. His thumb moved once over my knuckle, slow enough to make my breath catch. Ethan. My name sounded rough in his mouth. I looked at him and realized we were standing close enough that a small lean would change everything. He realized it too. The kitchen went completely still. His gaze flicked to my lips, then back to my eyes. Not a joke. Not an accident. A question. My whole body answered before my brain did. I leaned in just a little. Mason leaned too. Then the sliding glass door opened. Found them. Hudson's voice hit the room like a fire alarm. Mason and I jumped apart, but not fast enough. Our hands separated last. Hudson froze with one foot in the kitchen, eyes dropping to the space between us. Behind him, Haley and two other friends stopped talking. For one horrible second, nobody said anything. Then Hudson's face softened in a way I did not expect. He did not make a joke. He just looked at Mason, then at me, and quietly said, "Oh." Mason glanced at me. I saw the old fear flash across his face. The instinct to laugh it off. To save everyone from the awkwardness. To save himself. But this time, I did not look away. And this time, Mason did not either. Hudson saw everything. Maybe not the whole story, not the years of jokes, not the late-night drives, not the way Mason always looked for me first in crowded rooms. But he saw enough. My heart slammed against my ribs while the kitchen held its breath. Haley stood behind him with two paper plates in her hands, eyes moving from Mason to me, then down to where our hands had just been. I waited for Hudson to laugh. I waited for the joke. Something loud and stupid that would let us hide again. He did not give us one. He just shifted his weight and cleared his throat. We found the napkins. Nobody moved. Then Mason reached beside him, picked up the napkin stack from the counter, and held it out. His hand was steady. Mine was not. Hudson took them slowly. Cool. A pause. Very normal kitchen energy in here. There it was. Almost a joke. Gentle enough not to hurt. Mason let out the smallest breath, and I realized he had been waiting too. Haley gave a soft smile, not the teasing kind. More like she had already guessed, and was relieved we were finally catching up. Burgers are done, she murmured, then tugged Hudson backward by the sleeve. Come on. Hudson pointed two fingers at his eyes, then at us. I am being emotionally mature right now, and I want credit later. The door slid shut behind them. Mason and I stayed where we were. A few feet apart. Too far, suddenly. The old version of me would have laughed. Made a face. Said, well, that was weird. And walked out first like nothing had happened. Mason looked at me, and I saw him brace for exactly that. So I did something else. I stepped back toward him and held out my hand. Not dramatic. Not shaking anymore. Just open. His eyes dropped to it. Then back to my face. You sure? My chest tightened, but not from fear this time. No, that made him blink. I swallowed. I am scared. I do not know what happens after this. I do not know what to call us. I do not know if Hudson is going to make 1,000 jokes by Monday. Mason's mouth twitched. He will. Definitely. I breathed out, almost laughing. But I am sure I do not want to keep pretending it is nothing. Mason stared at me for one long second. Then he took my hand. His fingers slid between mine like they had been trying to get there all day. This time, nobody interrupted. This time, he did not let go. We walked back outside together. Not announced. Not explained. Just together. The yard did not go silent like some movie. People were still talking, eating, arguing about whether corn belonged on the grill. A few eyes flicked down to our hands. Hudson saw first, obviously. He pressed a fist to his chest like he had witnessed a national event. I glared at him. He mouthed, proud of you, which somehow made it worse and better at the same time. Haley smiled into her drink. Nobody exploded. Nobody demanded answers. The world did not end. Mason's thumb moved once over my knuckle, a tiny check-in. You okay? I squeezed back. Yeah. We sat beside each other on the old wooden bench near the fence. The same kind of crowded backyard where I had spent years pretending his knee against mine meant nothing. Only now, when his knee touched mine, he did not move away. Neither did I. Hudson handed us a plate piled with chips and one suspiciously burned burger. For the couple at table, emotionally complicated. Mason groaned. I pointed at Hudson with a chip. You had 1 minute. That was heroic restraint. Everyone laughed. Even Mason. A real laugh this time. Low and warm, the kind that used to make me look away. I did not look away now. Later, when the sky turned purple and the leftover fireworks started popping somewhere across the neighborhood, Mason leaned closer on the bench. Not enough for a scene, just enough for me to hear him over the music. I almost kissed you in the kitchen. My face went hot. I noticed. Good. He looked down at our hands, still joined between us. I still want to. My heart kicked hard, but the panic was softer now. Not in front of Hudson. Mason glanced across the yard, where Hudson was trying to balance a soda can on his head. Fair. I laughed, and Mason smiled at me like that sound mattered to him. Like I mattered to him. We did not figure everything out that night. We did not put a perfect label on it. We did not promise forever under fireworks or turn into different people by morning. We were still Ethan and Mason. Still best friends. Still terrible at talking when things got too real. But after that night, something changed in the smallest, clearest way. He drove me home later, and when we got to my apartment, he did not stay in the truck behind the safety of the steering wheel. He walked me to my door, like he had done 100 times before. Only this time, when we stopped under the porch light, he reached for my hand again. Can I kiss you this time? Simple. Quiet. No joke to hide behind. I looked at him, at the nervous smile he was trying so hard to control, and suddenly I remembered one more piece from the night before. Me on the back steps, his hoodie around my shoulders, whispering that I wished I could want him without ruining everything. And Mason answering, maybe you would not ruin it. Maybe you would just change it. I smiled. Yeah. The kiss was soft, brief, real enough to make my chest ache. When he pulled back, he stayed close, forehead almost touching mine. Still scared. I nodded. Yeah. His thumb brushed my hand. Me too. That should have made it worse. Somehow, it made it easier. Because for once, we were scared in the same direction. I used to think the worst part of that July morning was waking up with no memory. I was wrong. The scariest part was waking up to the truth Mason had remembered for both of us. And the best part was realizing I did not have to forget it anymore.